قرآن واسق حياتي قرآن.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, today we'll learn 10 lessons from Juz 12. Let's go to our first lesson.
وما من دابة في الأرض إلا على الله رزقها ويعلم مستقرها ومستودعها كل في كتاب مبين.
The first lesson we learn from this juz is be content with the sustenance given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A believer knows that sustenance is fixed for everyone from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this doesn't mean that a person and a mu'min remains idle and asks for sustenance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sitting at his house. No. We have to fulfill our responsibility and leave the rest on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The gist of the hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, where it says, if responsibility of providing sustenance is Allah's, then what is the problem? And if the fixed sustenance is already distributed by Allah, then why is this greed?
فقال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه ما نراك إلا بشرا مثلنا وما نراك اتبعك إلا الذين هم أراذلنا.
The second lesson we get from this juz is ignore the enemy's psychological trap. That means do not be bothered by enemy's emotional trap. Enemies will try to do character assassination of a mu'min, of a believer in all forms because this is their trick. One should be careful about it and not let it affect them. Also, a true believer will never do character assassination of anyone.
قال يا نوح إنه ليس من أهلك إنه عمل غير صالح فلا تسألني ما ليس لك به علم إني أعظك أن تكون من الجاهلين.
The third lesson we get from this juz is stand with the truth in all circumstances. A believer always supports the truth even though superficially he might be in loss. This ayah is about Prophet Nuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is stating that his son was not on the right path because his a'mal were ghayr salih. He did not have amal salih, he did not have good actions. So he was not counted as the family. Whereas we know that in reality, he was a family member, he was the son of Prophet Nuh. Here we understand that Prophet Nuh's son, beside being the son, did not have that status of being with the Prophet.
ويا قوم استغفروا ربكم ثم توبوا إليه يرسل السماء عليكم مدرارا ويزدكم قوة إلى قوتكم ولا تتولوا مجرمين.
The fourth lesson we get from this juz is always ask forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To ask forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala results in both blessing in this world and in the hereafter. The gist of the hadith from our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is best of the prayers is asking for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever we need, either it is regarding sustenance, risk, or to have a child, it is recommended in hadith to do a lot of istighfar to see the results.
ويا قوم أوفوا المكيال والميزان بالقسط ولا تبخسوا الناس أشياءهم ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين.
The fifth lesson we get from this juz is respecting others' rights. A believer will understand the importance of giving others their right and not tricking them or betraying them. We should give others their rights, we should not trick them. Even non-Muslims' rights should be given to them. Imam Rada alayhi salam narrated on behalf of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam that a believer should not trick another believer because he had heard from Jibreel that the person who tricks is one of the inmates of hell and he is not among us who betrays others.
ولا تركنوا إلى الذين ظلموا فتمسكم النار وما لكم من دون الله من أولياء ثم لا تنصرون.
The sixth lesson we learn from this juz is do not have expectations and trust the oppressor. A believer should not have expectations and trust the oppressor. Knowing that the person is oppressor but still having soft corners for them as they are in power and he gets the benefits from them either financially or morally, all these are incorrect. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, هو الرجل يأتي السلطان فيحب بقاءه إلى أن يدخل يده إلى كيسه فيعطيه. This means this ayat is about those who are in constant touch with oppressor kings and people of power and wish good for them so that his sustenance from them is not stopped.
وأقم الصلاة طرفي النهار وزلفا من الليل إن الحسنات يذهبن السيئات ذلك ذكرى للذاكرين.
The seventh lesson we learn from this juz is special attention towards prayers, towards the salah. Yes, a believer must give special attention to the prayers, the etiquettes of prayers and its time. The moment tries to pray the salah on awwalul waqt. Whenever it is the azan time, he tries to pray on the time, on the prescribed time to get that reward. Regarding the qada salat, we should try to count how many qada salat we do have so we can pray them gradually. And in case, God forbid, if our namaz is qada and if we do not pray it on time on the day, we should try to make the qada on the very same day.
وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ.
The eighth lesson we learn from this juz is study history and take lessons from it. It has been highlighted in this verse the importance of learning lessons from stories and events mentioned in the Quran and applying them in our lives. Just reciting the Quran will not benefit the most, as Quran was revealed for the guidance of mankind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned all the stories of the prophets so we can take guidance and take lessons and get closer to Him.
وراودته التي هو في بيتها عن نفسه وغلقت الأبواب وقالت هيت لك.
The ninth lesson we learn from this juz is guard your modesty. A believer always is mindful about his modesty and guards it. We have a hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. The gist of the hadith is, it says that on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask the adulterer, the person who has performed, who has indulged in zina, Allah will ask him, why you committed this sin? He will say that, Allah, you created me beautiful, so I committed the sin. In return to the response, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show him Prophet Yusuf and ask him, who is beautiful? Are you beautiful? Are you more beautiful than Yusuf? The person will say, no, Prophet Yusuf is more beautiful than me. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say that he had a chance and he did not commit the sin. So what is your excuse now?
قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه وإلا تصرف عني كيدهن أصب إليهن وأكن من الجاهلين.
The last lesson we get from this juz is facing challenges is acceptable if it helps avoid sins. Yes, it is fine to be in a difficult situation if it is to avoid sins. A believer always prefers to go through hardships rather than just committing sins, just like Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, who went through different trials but he did not commit a sin. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him two things. One is that he got closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, And the second thing, he was appointed and he was given the high status in the kingdom of Egypt. These were the 10 lessons. Inshallah, we'll come again with the next 10 lessons of the next juz. Till then, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.